Good morning, welcome to Vicky 3 Academy. I'm Walker, and we're doing Brazil today in our Basic Country Guide series. You, at the beginning of the game, are one of these minor powers, and you have two little open rebellions going on. And one of the contributing factors to this little open rebellion that's going on is, of course, the fact that your monarch at least, is this 11-year-old Pedro II. So how is it that there is an 11-year-old monarch here in Brazil? Well, it's a consequence of the Napoleonic War. So just to very briefly go over the history here. France, of course, invaded Spain and Portugal. It nominally was supposed to be invading Portugal because of Portugal's long-standing alliance with Great Britain, but as a result of marching through Spain, they actually launched a coup in Spain and therefore opened the Spanish ulcer. But when they occupied Iberia, the Portuguese royal family actually fled to their colony in Brazil and established a government in exile over there. And then, of course, at the end of the Napoleonic Wars, the royal family went back to Portugal, but Pedro I, your father, as well as your, over here we have Maria, your elder sister, your collective dad, Pedro I, actually ended up setting up shop in Brazil and leading an independence movement against your grandfather for control. Because Pedro I was a very interesting character. I would just recommend reading his Wikipedia article. But he ended up winning independence against Portugal, and then your grandfather died. So your dad, Pedro, went back to Portugal to become king of a country that he had fought an independence war against. But unfortunately, your dad, Pedro I, has died, and now Brazil and Portugal, they are firmly independent countries at this point, but you, as Pedro II, have a lot of work to do still. You are a reformer intelligentsia, so you are very happy to try to implement new liberal laws here in Brazil. But in order to do that, you are going to need to defeat these rebellions first. So when you're playing Brazil, don't be too intimidated by these things going on here. Just make sure that you do recruit another general. It doesn't really matter who. I would recommend, generally speaking, anyone who is not a landowner, because you just don't want to work with them. I recommend hiring another general, so that way you can mobilize everybody, activate a couple of these smaller conscripts, and then you're going to go ahead and you're going to make sure that you have an import route set up for your guns, because you are going to need more guns than you currently can produce. And then once you've done that, you can actually just set one general to defend, and then a third general to do naval invasions, and you'll very, very easily sweep these guys off the field. It's going to be pretty straightforward for you. Oh, hey, we got brothers, I guess is what's going on there. One of them's in armed forces, one of them's in industrialists. How do they ever get along? But you got that little naval invasion set up, and that's going to help you capitulate Piratini. And then once you've done that, you can do the same thing back to Grapara. It's actually quite straightforward. So don't worry about the fact that it looks like you started a civil war. Winning this war is going to be very easy for you. Winning this war, on the other hand, is going to be more complicated. So, Pedro II, you've got yourself, and you are intelligentsia in terms of your personal leanings, which means you can get a lot of legitimacy from having the intelligentsia in your government. So that's going to be really helpful. Unfortunately for you, you do need to work with the landowners one last time before getting rid of them. So you're going to want to bring them into power, and then you're going to want to go ahead and activate corn laws. So in order to do that, you need export prioritized tariffs, and then you need either isolationism or mercantilism. You've got it. And you need powerful landowners that are part of the government. So all we need to activate corn laws here is export prioritized tariffs. So we're going to go into our market. I'm going to go down here. You go, Walker, you can't export grain when you're at plus 44%. Watch me, ha 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 ha. And what that's going to do is it's going to open a corn law journal entry. And that corn law journal entry is going to have associated pulse events, some of which are going to make your aristocrats a little stronger. Maybe they'll make you institute a minimum wage. But one of the pulse events is going to say, hey, you've got a new person who's arguing for different distribution of power within the landowners. Do you want to help them out? Say yes, and then that character is going to come in, oust this person, and is going to have a very special ideology here called the market liberal. And the market liberal who's going to come in is going to be in favor of switching from agrarianism to laissez-faire, is going to be in favor of switching from mercantilism to free trade and is going to be in favor of child labor. And what that means in a very broad sense is that you can use the landowner to switch into laissez-faire and thereby gain a whole lot of popularity or approval rating with the landowner, which will in turn allow you to leave slavery. If you need to get a little bit more approval, of course, you can come up with you can come up with free trade instead of mercantilism. But going from mercantilism to free trade is a little scary as a minor nation. So I recommend that you reserve that in case you need to do it. But this one, agrarianism to laissez-faire, is pure upside. Yes, you have a lot of aristocrats. No, they're not contributing a lot to investment pool anyway. Don't worry too much about the fact that, oh, sure, you could develop a rural economy, because laissez-faire is way, way, way more investment pool contribution. 50% capitalist is a lot more than 25% aristocrats. And 25% loan interest rate means that you have a lot more flexibility and options in terms of using debt to fuel your own construction. Debt is one of these things that's very useful, but it becomes less useful the more expensive it is. And your rank is going to have a pretty significant impact on your credit and on how much your interest is going to cost. Roundabout way, you need to use corn laws to get a new landowner leader, so that way you can do laissez-faire. You can only do that because you already start with serfdom abolished, so that's pretty sweet. But then you can just, like, once you've done that and you've changed these laws around, you can potentially eject the landowner, because you do have a lot of other work that you need to do. The work in here beyond slave trade, you need to get out of slave trade so that you can get down into multiculturalism, because you need so much migration as Brazil. Like, yes, you start with a pretty large population, and this population is even bigger because there's about 500,000 pops currently in rebellion against you. But still, that's only like 5 million. That's not that much, considering that, like, some of your states have 222 unused arable land. You can support a much bigger population as Brazil, but people won't come to you unless they feel safe there. So you need to make sure you get out of slave trade and then get out of get down into multiculturalism. You need a school system at some point, and you need health system at some point. Fortunately, you start in appointed bureaucrats. Like, most of your laws really are not that bad, other than this core problem right here of non-multiculturalism, non-slave trade. But there are obvious improvements that you can be making, like getting out of migration controls would be helpful too. So beyond that core little government loop thing, your budget is going to be pretty straightforward, simply because your economy is so large. Don't be afraid to use your authority to bolster the intelligentsia, and do your best to try to help make sure that your intelligentsia is going to get as strong as possible by building an economy that supports them. So on that note, don't ever do this. This is insane. It's crazy that they're adding even more bonuses to the wages, considering how good wages are right now. But people are just, like, largely ignoring the effects of the wages on their clout and the nature of power within their country, and just reducing them because they think that just reducing costs is, like, good. Which it's not, I promise. It's much better to do like taxing a whole bunch of people and then giving a bunch of money to the pops that you want to work with, than taxing a whole bunch of people and taking away money from the pops that you want to work with. Like, this is insane. Like, this button only makes sense if you don't understand how political power works. You can switch into iron frame buildings pretty easily. You don't have a particularly large construction sector at the beginning of the game as Brazil. In fact, you literally only have 2. But that's okay, because you have so much iron that you don't really need to worry about, well, can you support the iron mines? Or the iron... Yeah, you can. You can support it. Minas Gerais, however that is pronounced, you do not have enough infrastructure to keep expanding there until you get railways. But that's okay, because you got tons, and I mean tons, of iron all over the place, just an infinite amount of iron. And so don't be too shy about using iron frame construction, and don't be shy about adding more construction sectors as you feel like your economy grows, because construction sectors are pretty banger, and you can support a lot more growth than some of the other countries around you, just due to the size of your economy. Largely, you want to be building the things that are going to be maximizing your productivity. But do be aware that because of the nature of your economy and what resources you start with as Brazil, you for instance do not have nearly enough coal. You have an infinite amount of iron and wood. So just like be aware of the current weaknesses inside of the resources that you start with, and grow into the things that you need. So there's not going to be a lot of coal down here in South America, unfortunately, but there is a lot of coal over here. So you're going to probably need to colonize or imperialize over there. There's lots of sulfur down here, so you'll probably want to push west at some point. And then, of course, you do have a lot of good agricultural industrial crops that you can work on. But I'm gonna strongly emphasize to you right now: do not build agricultural things at the beginning of the game, even if you have an agrarianism investment pool ticking up, because that's going to empower your landowners further. And you're already doing this like delicate tightrope walk where you're trying to use corn laws, which is going to make the landowners stronger, at least temporarily, in exchange for getting laissez-faire, which is going to make your country stronger. You start with a tool industry as Brazil, so you are fairly well industrialized. This is sort of like the are you industrialized at all or not check. If you are not producing tools, you are not industrialized. But you are, and that's great, because you're going to need to produce even more of those, because unfortunately for you, they are also your tool industry is also in the same place that does not have enough infrastructure. You really do need to be using a road maintenance to do construction, given the size of your construction pool. Your military, not too much to say about it here, other than it's going to be very big. Oh, and of course, you do have this 10 stack of navy. I talked about this in the Sweden video, but basically a 10 stack of navy allows you to defeat almost anybody who's running irregulars and no cannons. If you're running irregular infantry and infantry focus, and you're fighting somebody who has line infantry and either cannon artillery or especially mobile artillery, the person with guns is going to beat you up pretty badly. But like as soon as you're done with these dudes, you probably can afford to start puppeting people. If you want to start puppeting locally, you can, but these guys might resist you. Like the more enemies that you have to fight who have guns, the harder it is going to be for you. So I would prioritize, like beating up Brunei or whatever. That's going to be a lot easier and therefore a lot more profitable. On that note of diplomacy, if you want, you can try to cultivate local relationships. Some of these countries are going to be pretty friendly to you, but most of them are probably going to hate you because you are basically the big bully down here right now. And so rather than being too concerned about like whether or not they're going to like you, make sure that Great Britain and France and possibly the United States of America are all pretty happy about you. And so don't be afraid to cultivate a relationship with one or two or three of all three of them. The other thing, of course, that you can do is just prioritize fighting people who are not going to be able to find friends, right? Just be aware of who is rivals with whom. In terms of your technology, you need to pick up empiricism almost certainly first, because you have elections. You have wealth voting, in fact, which should help industrialists and intelligentsia even more than landed voting. But unfortunately, you don't have a liberal party, and you can't have a liberal party until you've researched empiricism. So this is the very first technology I think you have to research as Brazil. After that, you might want to pick up Napoleonic warfare as your second technology, because that's also very, very strong. It just depends on how much fighting you intend to do. But lathe, atmospheric engine, mechanical tools, railways, these four techs you need to get pretty much as soon as possible with almost everybody. I think what I would recommend is empiricism, Napoleonic warfare, and then like do the industrial loop. You can go engine then tools, or tools then engine, depending on which one you need more of right now. If you are running really tight on tools, then pick up mechanical tools and do steel tools. If you are not, and you want to and you already have a coal mine going, you can go into atmospheric engine pumps. That can be pretty helpful. But just be aware of like the importance of getting empiricism early as Brazil. Journal entries beyond the corn laws, like just look for things that are going to give you more research really quickly. So yeah, that's the Brazil basic country guide. I think that Brazil has all of the tools to really, really succeed in Victoria 3. And it's just a nature of like how you play the opening out. All right, that's Walker. Take care.